Good morning everyone. I am Sanobeen Afreen from Government Degree College for Women, Begumpet. And my topic is about control statements, which are useful for all types of programming languages, including C, Java, database, and etc. Coming to the topic, control statements. Control statements enables us to specify the flow of program control, the order in which the instructions of the program must be executed. And it also helps us to take decisions and to jump from one section of code to another, and also to take many instructions from the program. And control statements are basically ways for the programmer to control and execute what type of instructions are to be executed and what pieces of instructions are to be done. And the normal period of execution in a control statement in a high-level language is sequential, which means that each and every statement has to be executed according to the basis of occurrence in the program. And control statements helps them in specifying the order of execution. And there are three types of control statements in C. First are the decision-making statements, which are obviously called as the branching statements. And the second is the iteration statements, which are instead and otherwise called as loop statements. And third is the jump statements. Let us first speak about the decision-making statements, which are otherwise called as branching statements. Decision-making statement is about deciding the order of execution of statements based on certain conditions, or repeat a group of statements until certain specified conditions are met. And C language handles decision-making statements by supporting many number of statements. Decision-making requires that the programmer has to make certain conditions, and the programmer specify one or more conditions to be evaluated or tested by the program, and along with certain statements or a single statements which has to be executed, and which is determined either by the programmer optionally, or which is to be executed at certain point of time. And let us look at the flow chart shown above. The flow chart of decision making statement is that first the condition will be given, and soon the condition will be given, then the next process is to execute. Before discussing about the functionality of the flow chart, let us have a look at the parts of the flow chart. The lines which are exactly proving as the arrows are called as flow lines, and these flow lines interact the statements and the conditions. And the rhombus shaped part is called as decision, and this decision is used to make certain operations and which have many alternatives, either true or false. And the rectangle shaped part is called as processing, and this is used for arithmetic operations and also data manipulations. And the circle shaped one is called as the on-page connector, which is used to connect different page lines. And now speaking about the functionality, in the decision part we use the condition under which many conditions will be placed, and if that condition is proved to be true, then the statements get executed. If the condition is proved to be false, then it automatically comes out of the program. And now decision making statements are again of five types. The first is the if statement, the second is the if else statement, the third is the nested if statement, the fourth is the if else if statement, and the fifth is the switch statement. Talking about the if statement, an if statement consists of a Boolean expression followed by one or more statements, and it evaluates the test expression inside the parenthesis. An if statement also has many conditions to be followed, and one of the important functions of if statement is that it has a Boolean expression. And also let us speak about the syntax of if statement. If and a condition will be given, and under that a statement will be executed only if the condition is proved to be true, and if the statement is not executed to be true or false, then it comes out of the program. If the Boolean expression evaluates to true, then the block of code inside the if statement will be executed, and if the Boolean expression is determined or evaluated to be false, then the first set of code after the end of the if statement after the closing braces will be executed. And now let us speak about the flow diagram of if statement. As we have learned that a condition will be given, and under that condition any type of condition including a variable deciding a number will be given, and if that condition according to our terms and conditions have been proved to be false according to the protocols, then it comes directly to the conditional code, and under that conditional code statement will be executed to be true. And if the condition is deemed to be false, then it automatically bypasses the other statements and comes out of the program. And let us have a look at the program. As we all know that every program gets started with #include stdio.h, which means that standard input and output header file with an int main declaration part over there and with a local variable declaration, and we also assign a certain value or allocate a certain value to a variable a. Here we have taken the value as a, and checking the Boolean condition, the condition is also been given as a is less than 20, which means that we need to prove taking the value of a into consideration, and if that consideration is proved to be true, then it prints the message as true and the value also. In case if the condition is proved to be false, then the printf does not print any message, and so after looking at all the considerations, the output will be as a is less than 20, value of a is 10, because our condition has been proved. And now talking about the if-else statement. An if statement can be followed by an optional else statement which executes when the Boolean expression is false, and the syntax of if-else statement is if a condition will be given in order to prove it, and then else. Unlike the if statement, we do not have the else statement in if statement. We have to execute what is to be proved. Under the else statement, we can execute even the false statement if it is not to be proved. And then if the Boolean expression evaluates to true, then the if block will be executed. Otherwise, the else block will be executed. Flow diagram. Let us have a look at the flow diagram of if-else statement. As mentioned earlier, a condition will be given, and if that is proved to be true, then it goes to the if code and there it gets executed. And if that condition is proved to be false, then it goes to the else code and directly comes out of the program. If it is proved only, it stays inside the program and can be further calculated. And coming to the program, as we all know that it includes the standard input and output header file with a main declaration content, and we have assigned a value 100 to the variable a. And checking the condition has been given that a is less than 20. So if we replace the value of 100 in the place of a, we need to get the actual condition. And so if it is true, the printf prints the message as a is less than 20. Else, if the condition is false, then it will print the message as a is not less than 20. So as the condition is not proved, the output will be given as a is not less than 20 and value of a will be given as 100. And speaking about the nested if statements, the third in the statement, nested if-else statements, which means you can use one if or else if statement inside another if or if-else statement. Syntax of the if statement, nested if statements is if a condition will be given, not only one condition under the nested statements, but two conditions will be given, unlike the if and if-else statements. And if that is expressed or evaluated to be true, then it executes the expression, and then the second expression will be given. If that is expressed or executed to be true, and then the second expression will also be compiled. You can also nest if-else in the similar way as you have nested if statements. And let us have a look at the flow diagram of nested if statements. First, a condition will be given. If that condition is proved to be false, it directly comes to the block statement 1 and gets executed. If that is proved to be false, and then it comes to the block statement 3 and there it stays away. If the second condition which we have given is proved to be true, then it comes to the block statement 4 and gets executed. If the condition 2 is deemed to be false, it comes to the block statement 3 and stays away. And if after the enclosure of all these statements, if they are proved, then they get executed. And if they are deemed to be false, then they bypasses all the situations and the statements and simply and quietly come out of the program. And let us now look at the program of nested if statements. And as we all know that it starts with a standard input and output header file with the main declaration and also local variable declaration. We have assigned a value 100 to A and a value 200 to B. And checking the Boolean condition now, it's been given that a condition A is equal to 100 and B is equal to 200, as we have learned that there will be two conditions under the expressions. and then if condition has been given, if they are proved to be true, then the message gets printed, and if that is not proved to be true, then the message doesn't get printed. And here, after looking at the above conditions, we have come to a conclusion that value of A is 100 and value of B is 200. Exact value of A which have been provided and assigned to it is 100, and the exact value of B which have been assigned to it and entrusted is 200, and so we have reached the conclusion. Let us now look at if-else statement. An if statement can be followed by an optional else if-else statement, which is very useful to test various conditions using single if statement itself. And now which means that we can also nest it. Nesting of if-else statements can be avoided only by using if-else and if-else statements. And coming to the syntax of the if-else and if statements, we will be provided with a condition and expression which has to be proved, and then not only one condition under this if-else statement, but also various conditions, various expressions can be added to it. And then else part will also be there, as it is mentioned that it is a else condition. Under the else part, if it is not proved to be true, then it also gets executed. Let us look at the flowchart of if-else statement. First, a condition or a Boolean expression will be given, and if that is proved to be true, it comes to the statement 1, and then if it is false, it bypasses to the next statement. And again, a second condition will be checked. If that second condition is proved to be true, it comes to the statement 2, and even if that condition is deemed to be false, then it bypasses to the next statement. If the third condition which have been provided is also true, then the statement 3 will be executed. If not, the statement also bypasses to the default statement, whereas default statement is optional. We may or we may not use it. If all the conditions have been proved to be true, then the execution of the program will become very easy and more readable. And if all these statements are proved to be false, then the program individually gets out of. Let us have a look at the program. Under this program, we have assigned various values because various expressions have been given to us, and a value called 100 have been entrusted to A, and the condition have been given that A is equal to 10, and a value called A is equal to 20 have been entrusted again under the category of else if, and if A is equal to 10, then we have to print the value as A is 10, and else if A is equal to 20, if else condition will become true. And speaking about the third condition, which is A is equal to 30, if that is also expected to be true, then the value of A will be becoming as 30. And else, we have studied that else part will also be there and will exist in if-else statements. And so if none of the above conditions is deemed to be true, then also the message will get printed as none of the values is matching, and the value also gets executed, and the exact value of A will also be printed, and so the output will be resulted. Let us speak about the switch statement. A switch statement usually will be nested for equality against various types of values, and each value in a case and the variable which have been switched on is checked therefore in the switch case. And basically switch statement is a multi-way long statement, and a switch statement is a substitute for long if statement, which compares different types of variables and for several integral values. And default situation case in a switch statement will also be there, and duplicate case values are also added in switch statement, and sometimes it are not allowed. And default statements are optional. If switch statement does not have a default statement, then also the condition is going to work properly. Let us have a look at the syntax of the switch statement. In the syntax of switch statement, a Boolean expression will be given as usually, and the case will contain another expression, and also break will be optional, and the other break will also be optional, and the default optional will also be given, which is sometimes maybe further. And the break is also used to either skip or to go to the beginning of the program. And let us look at the flowchart of the switch statement. Under this, as we have studied that many number of cases can be added to the switch statement. An expression which is also called as condition will be given, and under each case we will be given different number of case blocks individually to each case, and the case 1 the code block 1, case 2 the code block 2, and the case 3 the code block 3. And if all these conditions have been satisfied, then the statement gets executed. And if none of the above conditions have been satisfied, then it simply comes to the default block, that is code block N, and then comes out of the program. Let us have a look at the program of the switch statement. Hash include stdio.h, as we have studied that standard input and output header file is compulsory for every type of statement, and the int main declaration is also good. And the char grade B is the value which have been entrusted as a condition, and under that, as we have studied that, many number of cases will be given. Under case A, excellent is the word which have been given to us. If the condition is proved to be true under the category of B condition, then it will print the message as excellent. And under the case B, we have given that a very good is the value to B, and if that is deemed to be true, it will be printed. Under case C, we have given the value as well done if that suits B, and then this will be executed. Under D, you passed is the word which have been given to us. If that is also executing, then it becomes true. Under case F, better try again is being given. If that matches the B grade, then it also be given. Default is also added, as we have studied regarding that. In a print, invalid grade have been given, which means that all the above grades in the cases are not correct and the invalid grade will be given. As we have studied that B requires an output called very good, and under the grade B an output will be given. And let us have a look at all the pictures above. Before going to the looping statements, I would like to speak about the important points regarding all the statements under the decision making statements. Else and else if statements are optional, and the if statement is only enough for a decision making statement to work properly. And else statements cannot work without an if statement. Not only relational operators but also logical operators like and or not can also be used in the decision making statements. And a break statement is used in switch statement so that it could break the actual statement sequence. And also the default statement is optional, and nesting of switch statement is also optional. If we nest the switch statement, then the cases may be something difficult, which means that it becomes more complex and less readable. And now let us go to the looping statements or the iteration statements. Sometimes it is necessary for the program to execute the statements in a several number of times, and also to execute a different block of commands for a specified number of times until the condition which we have provided has been met. And so under the looping statements, let us have a look at the flowchart. And for this flowchart, first the initialization process will be done, which means that a variable will be entrusted with a value, and then the condition will be checked. After checking the condition, variable will be either incremented or decremented, and after the decrementation process, the loop comes up and down, and then until the condition is satisfied, it continues to be flowing. After all the conditions have been satisfied, then the loop comes out of the program. And the first among the loop statements is that C has different categories of loops, under which the first is the while loop, the second is the do while loop, and the third is the for loop. And speaking about the while loop, a while loop exactly repeats a loop for a several number of times until the target which have been provided to us has been met and a condition becomes true. And moving towards the syntax of the while loop, while and the condition will be given and a statement will be executed. Before speaking about the program and the flowchart, I would like to say that a while loop undergoes three types of stages. The first is the variable initialization state, in which a variable will be initialized and entrusted with a value, and the second is the condition providing stage, and the third is the variable incrementation or decrementation stage, under which a variable will either be incremented or be decremented depending upon the circumstances and the protocols. Let us now look at the flowchart. And under the flowchart, we do have many statements, and a condition will be given. If that condition is deemed to be true, then it automatically goes to the code block and gets executed. And if that condition is deemed to be false, it comes out of the loop immediately, and if it is true, then the top to bottom and bottom to top continues. And here statement S may be a single statement or a block of statements under the condition of while loop. And in a while loop, there is a true value, which means that non-zero value, and the loop iterates or continues to be satisfied until it is true. And if suddenly it becomes false, or fortunately if it becomes false, the control automatically passes or jumps from the line immediately following the types of loops. And now speaking about the program of the loop, we have it under standard input and output header file under our int main declaration, and a value called 10 have been entrusted to the variable a, and a condition is also been given that a is less than 20. If a is less than 20 and the value is 10, and then the message gets printed until the condition is satisfied. As we have studied that there are 3 steps under the while loop. First step, the variable initialization step has been satisfied, and the second step, the condition providing step, has also been satisfied, and the third is the variable incrementation or decrementation step, which has been given that a is incremented under this program. And if a is incremented, let us replace the value of a under the incrementation process. So 10 plus 1 will become 11, and if 11 is placed under the condition 11 is less than 20, then it becomes true. In the similar way, let us increment the value 11 also. 11 plus 1 becomes 12, and if that is again going to the top and getting placed in the condition process, that is 12 is less than 20. In the similar way, we need to satisfy the condition until it becomes 19, because 19 is less than 20, but 20 is not less than 20. If it is given that less than or equal to 20, then we would have also placed 20. And now let's speak about the do while loop. Unlike for and while loops, which test the loop condition at the top of the loop, the do while loop usually in C programming checks at the bottom of the loop. And a do while loop is basically similar to the while loop, but the process is that do while is also called as exit control loop. And the fact is that it is guaranteed to at least execute one time, which means that execution process continues until the condition have been satisfied. And let us have a look at the syntax of do while loop. Do, and the statement will be given, and then the execution process will continue after the condition will be given. Whereas in while loop, the condition first gets satisfied, whereas in do while loop, the condition will be given after the statement has been executed. And notice that the conditional expression appears at the end of the loop, so that statement in the loop executes once before the condition is tested. If the condition is true, the flow of control automatically jumps up to the back and top to the bottom, and the statement in the loop executes again and again. And also, the condition becomes false. Let us have a look at the flow diagram. Under this flow diagram, a condition will be given. If that condition is proved to be true, it directly goes to the top of the statement where statement will be given, because the loop, as its name suggests, it has to flow from bottom and bottom to top. If the condition is deemed to be false, then it automatically comes out of the flow or the loop. Let us have a look at the program. And under the program, we do have a variable a under which 10 have been entrusted to a. And if, as it is suggested that it is a do while loop, we need to print the message as do while loop. And also the incrementation process have been given, a is equal to a plus 1. And then while condition have been given after the incrementation process. We have seen that before in the while loop, under the while loop, the incrementation process will be at the end and the condition will be in the middle. But while comparing here, the incrementation process will be in the middle and the condition will be at the end of the program. And here, as we have given the value 10 to a, if it is incremented with 1, 10 plus 1 becomes 11. In the same process, if we put it in the condition, 11 is less than 20, which means that the condition have been satisfied. It is not completely satisfied because we didn't check until the 20 words. And so, if we again place the word 11 in the value of a, 11 plus 1 becomes 12, which means that 12 is also less than 20 and the condition is also satisfied. In the similar way, we need to move from 10 to 19 until all conditions have been completely satisfied. Let us draw a difference between while loop and do while loop. A while loop is called as entry control loop, whereas do while loop is called as exit control loop. And under the while loop, first the test condition will be checked and then the statement will be executed and the body of the loop will be shown. Under the do while loop, first the condition or the body of the loop will be given and then the statement or the condition will be checked. And now coming to the for loop. For loop is just similar to while loops in the process that it continues a block of code and a statement also becomes false else, and everything will be defined in a single line itself, unlike the do and while loops. And the while loop is also sometimes called as entry control loop, and for loop is also called as entry control loop. Both have a certain bit of similarities. And talking about the syntax, for initialization, condition are incremented. We have studied in while loop that first the initialization process is done and next the condition providing process, and then the incrementation or decrementation process will also be done. And then, but here in the for loop, all the processes, initialization process and the condition providing process and the incrementation or decrementation process goes in a single line, one after the other simultaneously, and then the statement will be given and then executed. Let us have a look at the flowchart. In the flowchart of loop, first the initialization process, and then if it is true, it goes to the code block, condition will be given, and if that is also deemed to be true, then the variable incrementation or decrementation process will be done. As we have studied that loops have to flow continuously from top to bottom and bottom to top, then the flow of that gets continued from top to bottom and bottom to top. And if that is expected to be false in certain circumstances, then that automatically comes out of the loop. But in many situations, loop does not exist to be false. It obviously and alternatively stay to be true. And heading towards the program, under this, a value and a variable called a has been given. And we have studied that it already gives the values in a single line. Then a is equal to 10 has been given. And the condition also been given that a is less than 20, and the incrementation process also goes in the single line. And if it is true, then it prints the message as value of a is with the numbers given. And if we place the value of 10 in the condition, 10 is less than 20, and so it goes directly to the output statement. And if we again place the value 14 in the place of a, then 14 is also less than 20. If that gets incremented, 14 plus 1 becomes 15, and 15 is also less than 20. In the similar way, the value continues until it becomes 19, because it has to be checked until value a is less than 20, because it's not been given that less than or equal to 20. If it's been less than or equal to 20, 20 has also been got included. And I would like to draw a difference between do while loop or while loop and a for loop. The difference between while loop and for loop is that under the while loop, it undergoes 3 stages, which means that the first initialization stage, under which variable will be initialized, and then the condition stage, and then the incrementation or decrementation stage. And then, whereas in for loop, all the 3 processes, the variable initialization, the condition providing, and the variable incrementation or decrementation, will be gone in a single line. And now speaking about the jump statements. Jump statements basically enable us to speak about the process or the location they have. And jump statements are basically those statements which enable us to speak about the location in which they are, and they jump from one code of section to another. There are a set of keywords that are used in jump statements that make us to jump either within the block or from one point of location to another location. And a jump statement can interrupt in many ways. The switch statement, it interrupts the switch statement, and also it interrupts the loop statements, which means that if we use the jump statements, we use break, we use continue, and we use go to, which means that under a loop we do have to break certain situations and we do have to skip certain situations or to go to the beginning of the loop. In such situations, jump statements are used. Unlike the loop and the switch statements also get interrupted with the help of jump statements, whereas jump statements are particularly considered to be very useful, and it is less readable and also not similarly more complex. And jump statements have been categorized into 3 types. The first is the break statement, the second is the continue statement, and the third is the go to statement, under which this jump statement helps us to make it available all the contents of the program, and the continue statement gets it continues with the loop, and the third statement also. And now let us speak about the first statement under the jump statement. First is the break statement. The break statement in C programming has the following usage. When the break statement is encountered inside a loop, the loop is immediately terminated, which means that the loop gets ended once the break statement is being encountered, because we break the loop where it has been existed. And the program control also gets paused up because the program call and the statement called break has been evaluated and entrusted to it at the next statement following the loop, and the other statement will get paused up. And now it can also be used to, as we have studied, that it can also be used in a switch statement. And let us speak about the syntax. The syntax of the break statement is simple because we just need to break the loop which is already existing. So it is break and a semicolon. And now speaking about the flowchart of the jump statement, here a conditional code will be given. Under that, after the conditional code, a condition or a statement will be expressed and evaluated. If that condition is proved to be true, then it goes to the conditional code and then repeats again and again. If we provide a break statement in between of the loop, then it breaks the statement in between, and then if it is proved and the next is proved to be false, then it comes out of the loop. As we have said that it resumes the actual statement after that. And now speaking about the program, under the program of jump statement, a value called 10 have been entrusted to the variable a, and condition has also been given as it is a loop, and a is less than 20 is the actual condition, and if a is less than 20 has been satisfied with its value given, then it prints the message as value of a is. And incrementation process has also been given under this program as a is plus plus, which means that a number extra has to be added to the actual initialized value. And the other condition have been given that a is greater than 15, which we need to terminate. As it is a break statement under the loop statement, then at the point of 15 the break has to be continued, which means that value of a will exist till 14 and till 15, because break has to be given after the 15, and so 16, 17 and 18, 19, which are the actual values to be given inside the loop, will get breaked off, and the program or the loop over there gets stopped off, and then the further process continues. And then let's speak about the second and the foremost statement. It is continue, and the continue statement in C is basically a break, is somewhat like break statement, which means that under break we just break the statement, and after that everything gets paused off inside the loop. And even here the continue statement also does the same process. Instead of forcing for the breaking up or the ending up of program, it bypasses and it forces the iteration of the loop to take place, and also it skips some codes in between. For the for loop, continue statement causes the conditional test, and also it incrementates what the loop to execute actually, which means that it actually skips many statements which have been provided in the loop and then continues further or comes to the beginning of the loop. And the while and the do while loops also continue statement causes the program to pass the conditional test, which means that a do while loop and also a while loop also inculcate the continue statement inside it to check the conditional tests which have been provided to it. And the syntax of continue statement is continue and a semicolon, because it just need to skip out some statements and need to continue. And let us have a look at the flowchart of continue statement. In a continue statement, a code will be given and a condition will be provided. Under that condition, any condition can be given. If that condition is deemed to be true, then it similarly comes to the conditional code and a value will be initialized, and the further incrementation process, initialization process, condition providing process goes on until the condition is satisfied in a loop as similarly. But if a continuous statement has been given in between of the condition, then it shows that a continuous statement thereon skips off some statements which we have been provided. For a clear demonstration, let us have a look at the program of continuous statement. Here, a value 10 have been entrusted to the variable a, and a do loop execution is going on as we put all these statements only in the loops. And then a is equal to 15 have been entrusted and to the value which is called as condition, and skipping the iteration have been given. As we have studied that continue means skipping certain statements and then continuing thereafter. And now as it's been given that a is equal to 15 have to be skipped, and the incrementation process thereon continues until the condition which have been given that a is less than 20 gets satisfied. So let us place the value of a in its condition, and if a is placed in its condition 10, then 10 is less than 20, which means it is satisfied, and so it will give the output as value of a is to 20, and it similarly continues till 14, and it's been given that a is equal to 15 has to be skipped off, and so a is to 15 will be skipped off. And then further, if we place the value of 15 in the place of a in the incrementation process, then 15 plus 1 becomes 16, and from 16 to 17, 18 and 19, all these values gets mixed up, and from 10 to 19 except the 15 value will be resulted and compiled as an output. And the next in the statement is the go-to statement. A go-to statement in C programming provides an unconditional jump into a label statement in the similar and the different functions also. Note, there is a note in the go-to statement that it is highly discouraged in a programming language because it makes it very difficult to read. It makes very complex program, and so making the program very hard to understand also, and we couldn't even modify the go-to statements in certain situations, and the program cannot be, and to avoid them we cannot also rewrite them, and so a go-to statement is considered not to be used. And let us have a look at the syntax of the go-to statement. A go-to and a label will be given, and after a quick process and a statement will be provided, and even a condition. If that condition is expected to be true, then it comes to the execution process. Here, label can be any plain text, a C word, and it can be a set anywhere in the C program above or below the go-to statement, which means that go-to label has been given, and in the label part we can even fix this keyword part, and it can also come anywhere in the C program if the below to go to statement has been provided. And now flowchart. Let us look at the flowchart of the go to statement. Under a go to statement, many statements will be provided, under which many labels will also be provided. Under the label category, we can fix any types of plain texts. Under statement 1, under a statement 1, a condition will also be given. Under the statement 2, condition will also be given, and further the process continues. And if the statement 1 is proved to be true, then it comes to this next statement. If that is also proved to be true, then it comes to the next statement. Bypasses of condition continues. And if the third is also proved to be true, then it also bypasses. And if a go-to statement have been inculcated into the loop, then that makes an issue, and all the labels get executed to be true. And now let us have a look at the program of the go-to statement. Under a go-to statement, a value called 10 have been entrusted to the variable a, and under the do loop execution we are continuing this process, and under a loop a condition have been given that a is equal to 15, which means that we need to skip the iteration a is equal to 15. This is same like the before one which we have studied, that is nothing but the continuous statement. Even here the skipping of the iteration have been provided, and the incrementation has been given that a is equal to a plus 1, which means that 15 plus 1 is equal to 16, and from 16 till 19 it has to be calculated and continued, because a condition there down has been given that a is less than 20, which means that only till 19 have to be considered, and a till 14 has to be calculated, and the 15 has to be skipped because the skipping of iteration has been provided as a condition. And now let us have a brief regarding the control statements. Control statements are basically ways for the programmer to know and execute what pieces of program has to be executed at certain point of time and also particular times. And control statements makes it possible to make decisions and also to perform tasks at certain point of time and a particular point of time, and to decision making also will be done, and also many programs can be executed not only in the single part of language but also in different programming languages it can be used, and just the program will be different. And then C language also supports, and database, basic data type, and Java also supports this control statements. And control statements in a normal level of execution we use the basic high level, in the high level language also we use the basic scale of control statement, but it will be in a sequential manner, and it can be also altered and changed in particular situations depending upon the problems that we occur. And these control statements make us to execute the problem accurately and to arrive at a proper result. And the statements which actually decide the order of execution, which make us to help in decision making and which helps us to go through the problem, is called as control statements. And control statements also include the jumping of the sections from one section to another section, or from one location to another, or from one function to another using a set of certain keywords. These control statements can be function, and they make us to skip the program, to break the program, and to begin the program also, and continues the program also. And I would like to conclude saying that control statements can be used in our daily lives to make a program and a problem more accurate, and to solve any number of problems at a certain point of time deliberately. And then the simple logic behind the control statements is that every statement can be executed only if it is deemed to be true, and every statement can be executed even if it is false, but if else statement have been mentioned particularly in that. If not, the false statement cannot be executed if else is not mentioned, and that directly comes out of the loop and comes out of the program if necessary. And the true statement will be executed only if the true values have been entrusted under the standard input and output header file, and also the main declaration part, and the clear screen will also be provided under control statements. So better use of control statements can enrich our lives. Thank you.